You are how I won't ask you details about how long you're there because you're kind of a target and this goes internationally and I don't want any problems for you. I remember how upset I talked to Wyatt Reade like right after he was almost, harmed and it was really close, he
Yeah,
almost yeah, it was really close. And Eva Bartlett's been in that position. And now, you're constantly in that danger.
yeah.
So how are you dealing with the day to day, and how do you deal with safety as far as that goes? But still do your reporting. But you've been doing this a long time. I mean, you've been a war correspondent for a long time. You've seen a lot of conflicts. So how does this one compare to the other ones as far as personal safety?
Yeah, I mean, I always say like all wars are the same and yet very different, but in the same and just in terms of the bodies, of the risk, of the fear. But they're all different because of yeah, I mean, different realities on the grounds. This war is interesting. It's different in that I'm at an apartment now in the center of Donetsk,
Mhm.
and I joke with my translator when we go to the frontline positions, that it's safer there than it is in Donetsk center. And a lot of the time that would be true because you can just be killed at any moment just walking around the streets. I think the major broadcaster, I mean, the major Russian broadcaster here, Russia Today, I think all their correspondents have to wear bulletproof vests whenever they leave the hotel. I don't because I'm kind of living here, and it would just be. I can't just do it when I'm popping to the shops and things, and I sort of live here, and the people don't. So, but any foreign correspondent, like major BBC or Sky, they came here, they'd be wearing body armor whenever they left the hotel. Um, and that's what. But at the same time, you can feel peaceful sometimes. You go to a restaurant, a cafe. I said it's been quiet for the last couple of weeks, so I have actually been relaxed walking the streets. So that's what's that. I think that's the difficult thing here. And you just kind of breathe a sigh of relief when you leave, thinking I've survived this time.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's what's different here. So uh, but at the
Yeah.
moment, it's harder to move around as well. The new Russian authorities have moved in, so it's more bureaucracy, harder to get places. But I'm trying to get some up to Bakhmut, where the real fighting is there, or Zaporozhye direction soon. So that brings its own risks as well.
Oh, does it? Oh, yes, I would imagine so. I mean, I admire the work that you're doing because so many people are commenting on this conflict, including myself, that are sitting in comfortable places. Like, I'm not worried about being bombed right now. The worst thing I ever worry about is being hassled by the DOJ or FBI, but there you have it. Like, so do a lot of Americans right now. But that's not the same as like living day to day, wondering if you're going to get bombed and
Yeah,
shelled. And I really want to drive this home to the audience that's listening and watching how much terror the people have and the
yeah.
population have today. But there's also, you had said something in an interview that really struck me that neighbors keep their doors open because of the
Yeah,
shelling.
yeah,
Describe
yeah.
that.
So so I'm in an apartment block, and so all the apartment blocks' front doors are left open. So whenever there's shelling, people can just run into the nearest apartment block. And the local Telegram news channels, they dox apartment blocks who aren't open. This block's not open, And I've used them as well. I've run into these when they're shelling, and it's terrifying. You hear the whistle and explosions, and you run into these apartment blocks for safety because it's the shrapnel that kills. That sprays off the shrapnel in all areas. And yeah, I mean, going back to what you're saying about the terror of living under the shelling, I interviewed people in the outskirts of the frontline positions yesterday, and all of them saying we want an end to this war to varying degrees. Some of them saying NATO needs to stop supplying weapons to them. Some of them saying one of the women saying, my mother who lives on the other side is dying right now, not war related, but she's dying, and I can't be with her as she dies. And another woman saying, well, they've been killing us for 8 years. We are standing for longer for victory. We need victory. We can't negotiate with the Ukrainians anymore. The only way is for victory. But all these people wanting peace, and that's because they're the people living under the shelling. I mean, when you've got everyone knows somebody who's been killed, children have been killed, and you're living under the shelling. It's tough, and you see the bodies all the time. I've got a friend in London. My work here is putting a lot of strain on the friendships. A lot of friends don't understand what I'm doing here. They think that I'm a Russian propagandist, all this kind of stuff. That they're
Oh,
just.
really?
And one of my friends described himself as pro-war and says he celebrates the death of every Russian soldier. And it's
Oh,
just this is one of the and change Russian soldier to anybody else, any other nationality. And you know, being here, as I said, like schools over the road have been hit with bodies, and when you see the bodies of these innocent people ripped apart by this shrapnel, just on a just in the morning or an afternoon in a market nearby where I live, and you hear people say, "I'm pro-war and I celebrate the death of people," and these people have no understanding what it's like in a war or here, no understanding the horror of it, and I think that's one of the most important things as well to people like us to do, to really show what it's like. War it is hell, and for people to support war, to sit back and send more weapons, and when people are being slaughtered for no reason, just going to the shops. Yeah.
You must be dealing with a lot of secondary trauma, every day. And I don't think that that's helped when you don't have a support system back home with friends that really understand the value of your work. So you have friends with us here in
Thank
America,
you.
and you
Thank you.
have
Yeah, no,
care about you. And I know this war has been very divisive politically in Europe and in the United States for whatever reason. To me, it's very clear that it's wrong. All Russia wanted was the Minsk Accord to be honored and to NATO to stop expanding to their borders. All of this is about the resources of Ukraine because it was resource rich, right? I think there's a lot of pillaging happening. I think there's money laundering happening with the Biden administration, and I hope they reveal it. I think that there's a impetus now for congressional hearings to look into his business but it's also going to expose a lot of other politicians and a lot of other people in the West, because I think it's all to do with economic gain for them. And they don't care. I mean, you heard them talk publicly about we'll fight to the last Ukrainian. How that's dire.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's one of the, coming back into Donbass, and I sort of think, why am I doing this? Why am I risking myself? Who am I doing it for? And it's not just for people of Donbass and for Europe, for European people. It's also for Ukrainian people. I mean, the amount of Ukrainian soldiers who are dying, some of the videos coming out of Ukraine are disturbing, of people being forcibly, conscripted and being sent to the front lines with very little training to die for a proxy war. And it's like some kind of nightmare. I mean, of Ukrainian, so many Ukrainians, and Ukrainians are not some homogenous group who are all, and there's a lot of anti-Russia hate now, understandably. There's also so many Ukrainians who don't want war with Russia, who want peace negotiations. Many in Ukraine who support Russia, and their voices just aren't being heard. And if you try and say that, if you say we want peace, we need to listen to the people of Donbass, maybe we can give some territory to the Russians. If you say that, you're going to jail or you'll be killed in Ukraine if you say it publicly or too loudly in the streets. So there's a huge amount of oppression in Ukraine, and increasingly, of course, in Europe and America for anybody who speaks out, even saying the most obvious things. Like every serious person, every serious international analyst knows perfectly well that NATO is largely to blame for provoking this war. I mean, it's not even controversial. It's just basic. It's just basic international relations. But anybody who even says that, just some kind of propagandist, and that's the kind of insanity that our public discourse has moved into, that you can't even say just basic facts without being accused of being some kind of propagandist. And that's very dangerous for society.
You're absolutely right. It is.